It's honestly crazy that for 5 years now, I've been doing these silly little animation reviews just because I can. And I definitely wanted to celebrate this milestone with something special. One day I was thinking about the state of my channel. I cannot access my old one and delete the videos there due to some dumb Google policy things about school accounts no longer being allowed to even access their YouTube accounts. So even though I like keeping some of my re-uploaded content here, if I ever wanted to monetize my channel, which is highly unlikely, I'd have to take the re-uploads down. So I thought to myself, if one day I'm going to take down these videos, why not just remake them? So for my 5th anniversary of doing these reviews, I will be taking a look back at my previous thoughts on movies and shows I reviewed before the words bubble up like Soda Pop review. And we are starting off where everything began. My very first review. My old-ass review for A Whisker Away. But before we get started, editing has taken a bit of a toll on me, but I also don't like just having nothing for you guys to focus on, so I've elected to finally have an avatar in my videos. Bam! Here I am. From now on, when I'm too lazy or not sure what to put, I'm just gonna plot my character here for you to look at. Alright, let's get to it. A Whisker Away was the second anime movie I had ever watched in my life, and definitely the first movie I ever really looked at with a critical eye. So when I first watched it, I absolutely loved it. I thought the animation was absolutely beautiful, I thought the characters were more interesting than what I was used to at the time, but the biggest talking point I really focused on in my initial review of the movie was Muge's character arc and what exactly the themes of the movie were. The movie follows Muge as she is torn between the life of a human and the life of a cat, where she uses that transformation to basically stalk her crush as an escape from her very awkward new home life. When I first watched the movie, I found this part of Muge's character to be extremely compelling, as she uses her exaggerated antics and romantic endeavors as a mask to hide her insecurities and struggles, leading up to her decision to give up her human form because she genuinely believes she isn't wanted around anymore. And I did find it beautiful that her arc was about seeing the worth in herself, that even though she said and did some awful things, that doesn't mean she deserves to be erased from everyone else's lives, because there are some people whose lives are better because of her. I also recall liking Muge a lot because her antics reminded me a lot of my high school bestie back in Taiwan, who was all kinds of loud and exaggerated and romantic. Like, she was one of those people who might get on your nerves frequently, but you ultimately like just because she's a good person. However, one thing I remember harping on a lot was the entirety of the third act. That while the cat tree is beautiful, it resolved everything in a way that felt a bit hasty and didn't make a lot of sense. And it especially felt like it abandoned a lot of what made the first and second acts great. The nuances, the character, the potential to say something about the stalker attitude just felt like it was thrown out the window a little bit, and for no real reason, since the fight against the giant cat went on for so long. These were things I didn't think about in my initial review, and that's just because I wanted to pose this as something positive, which does make that video really basic and not very thorough at analyzing the movie. I remember giving this a 9 out of 10, which by the time the new year rolled around, even I thought that was a bit much, and ever since then I've questioned how I felt about it, especially the more romance anime I watched, and especially after coming across a few duds. So, does A Whisker Away ultimately hold up after 5 years? I don't think I've ever been more sad and disappointed at a piece of media in my life. I don't know if I misremembered something or if it was just the knowledge that this movie's ending wouldn't support the rest of it, because this absolutely did not hold up as much on a rewatch, dog. In fact, I don't think I can call it a good movie. My Oni Girl is no longer the weakest Studio Colorido film. Now granted, there are still things I like about this movie, and weirdly enough my observations are pretty much the same. The animation is still beautiful, with some hilarious cartoony flair where Muge is granted. I love the cat tree, and in general, I think until the third act, the story is paced fairly well. There's not really a dull moment plot-wise. And there are still moments of Muge's character that I find entertaining and compelling, as she's just so delusional and unhinged about her crush on Hinode that you can't help but just admire how ballsy she is. And I think there is something to say about how this exaggeration fronts her insecurities to the point where when she is faced with genuine affection for her human form by Hinode, she is genuinely taken aback. But I never really realized that there was such a void where the characters are concerned, and the script feels so first draft. The characters who are not Muge get extremely one-note personalities with dialogue that could be found on Wattpad. I'm dead serious. Hinode especially feels like he should be the second most important character in terms of development, and yet the biggest change in his character, from put off by Muge but still admiring her guts, to falling completely head over heels for her to the point where he brushes aside her stalking, feels so sudden so early on that it makes him feel like a stock character from a bad AO3 fic. And Muge doesn't fare much better. There's a reason why this movie is so hard to watch for some. I did say there are moments where her cartoonish antics are charming, like I love whenever the other characters turn into scarecrows, but other times her delusions can be pretty annoying and really off-putting. Like that one voice recording line is just a lot. Now, while the stalking to love is genuinely bad and no one should ever imitate it, I wouldn't go as far as to call it malicious. I just think this movie is horribly misguided, because you can see where this movie is trying to say something about how these kinds of people tunnel vision to their crushes as solutions to problems at home. But then somewhere along the line they got distracted by the romance and neglected to further develop the other characters, the nuances of the situation, and especially Muge's home life that just didn't properly end. Really, it feels like this movie's core issue is that there's a lot missing. The ideas are definitely there, and you can pinpoint a clear through line in the themes, but there is very little connecting everything together in a satisfying way, and very likely this will resonate in all the wrong ways with someone. Especially in Muge's case, she is a lot. I have said before that I appreciated that this movie had what would typically be classified as the manic pixie dream girl be the actual protagonist, and I still somewhat kind of feel that way, but even with the focus on her as a main character, it still finds a way to romanticize the stalking in a convoluted way that is just really icky and uncomfortable. And I know this doesn't really matter because not everyone watches dubs, but the dub for this movie is absolute ass and doesn't do Muge any favors, both in translation and especially her voice. They should not have gotten Jeremy Lay for this role. Someone with a more softer and chipper voice like Xanthe Huynh would have suited her so much better.
I think I'll be just fine. In fact, I have a special technique that'll make your head spin.
Her current voice gives her this nasally, witch cackly vibe that does not mesh well with her design. But in Muge's defense, and I am going here, my two Letterboxd fans, nothing that she does in this movie comes anywhere close to being as bad as Rikako from Ocean Waves or Hananoi from A Condition Called Love. And while I'm honestly too tired to rant about this, I just want you to think about how in this movie, Muge does ultimately care about what others think of her, to the point where she runs away because she genuinely thinks that's what's best for everyone, and she didn't mind that Hinode had other friends. Hananoi actively manipulated his girlfriend through his woe is me mentality and tried to keep her away from her friends, and Rikako is the definition of an awful person who gaslit and manipulated at least 3 people and did not feel an ounce of regret for any of it out of her immense narcissism. In the realm of terrible love interests, Muge is nowhere close to their level, for some of the more positive reasons I spouted earlier. I ultimately don't know if I can call A Whisker Away a bad movie, because while it is thematically questionable in its current state, I don't think it's a broken movie. The story structure makes sense and the animation supports it. The pieces of the puzzle are there for a character study that says a lot about the human condition, like, say, a silent voice. And you can see where this movie's intentions line up, but that does not change the fact that it is so first draft. This isn't a broken movie, but it is noticeably unpolished with an honestly unfinished script. which is really surprising since this is written by Mari Okada. It is entertaining enough with the physicality and histrionics, and I do think it is watchable on some level. If you want to riff on Muge's delusions and laugh at how clinically insane she is, there is definitely room for that kind of stuff, more so than any of the other bad romances you've probably sat through. But the execution pretty much fails its themes, and the lack of interesting character work is felt. Again, I'm not entirely sure how to feel about this movie now, so to play it safe, it retains a 5 out of 10. I don't know if that'll change again eventually, but man. And that's it for this re-review of A Whisker Away. Sorry that this video came out later than expected, I've got a few assignments to focus on, but I'm really looking forward to doing the rest of these. This is pretty fun so far, so tune in sometime next week when I revisit Over the Moon. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Thank you for watching, and catch you next time.